Welcome to our event here, Train Like a Pro. As I was saying just a moment ago, you should see the mobile app mirrored onto the desktop. We're going to be going through all the technology here that a lot of you ask questions about, but I also want to make sure that you leave this particular time with us knowing how to practice more effectively. In other words, train like a pro. As I said, and a lot of you probably saw this video as you were signing up, the majority of you are just simply out there practicing with no level of feedback, technology, or anything. So really, you're wasting your time. If you are somebody that's working with athletes and you're not using anything to document that time together, you're equally blowing it. So we just want to make sure that everybody here is being as effective as they can with the time that they are spending. So I'm going to head over to the library inside of CoachNow. And I want us to actually check out this quick little video. And this is going to be an interactive portion here. So I'm going to play this video for you. And I want you, as soon as you realize why this video exists, I want you to let me know, what are you seeing on this range? And the reason we're going to focus on golf a lot today is because the majority of you that signed up put your sport as golf. So we're going to keep it simple, keep it focused. So feel free to chime into the chat. What are you seeing in common here on this range? There's probably 50 people on this range here in Los Angeles, and they're all doing the same thing, except for maybe the one guy coaching. You see it yet? We'll let it play through. Yep, exactly. Somebody chimed in here. No feedback. You got it. So if we scroll through this video, not one person is using alignment rods, a training aid, and no one has a camera behind them. You've got your phone in your pocket. Why the heck aren't you documenting what you're working on? There's no level of feedback across the board here for everybody practicing. So I can say with absolute certainty, everybody here on that particular day that I was filming that video got worse. They definitely didn't get better. And there's no way for them to prove me wrong because they don't have any documentation of what they have done. So when you look at CoachNow, I want to make sure that you understand that as you are out there practicing and using our Analyze membership or any other of the memberships that we have, you are documenting what you're doing in each practice session. The best in the world plan, do, and review. So we work with Olympic teams, professional athletes, the best of the best. And what I know, and what I want to talk a lot about today, is the best in the world think about what they're going to do. So they plan ahead. Then they go do it, and then they document it so they can review it later, and so the rest of their teammates or support can do the same. So what I'm going to do here really quickly is I'm going to click into, as you can see, I got a lot of spaces as the founder here, a lot of years of testing, but I'm going to click into my golf space here. And before we get into the video tools, I just want to show you as I scroll through all the different content here over years and years of being, part of CoachNow, playing a little golf here and there, okay? So my background, if you're not familiar, before I dive into the core of the platform and why I built this platform so long ago, over 12 years ago, is once upon a time, I played golf at a really high level, at a professional level, but sadly injuries took me out, so I got into the world of coaching. I worked as a director of instruction at a club. I worked in an academy where we had kids live with us and train with us all year round. I then started working with professionals and elite college players and traveling the world as a coach. And the problem was, no matter what I did with all of these particular athletes, there was really no easy way to document it and keep track of it and make sure that we are tracking that progress over time, especially when we started looping other people in. So I was coaching 40 or 50 hours a week and then emailing, texting, YouTubing another 40 or 50 hours a week. So friends of mine and myself, we got together. We built this platform over 12 years ago. We're now in 60 sports, 140 countries. We're working with a lot of the folks that I've already mentioned. We're the #1 coaching app in the entire world. So you're here on a good day to not only learn about the technology, but take away a lot of the lessons that we've learned over the last 12 plus years and my 20 plus years in the world of high performance. So documentation, tracking things, look at this space and think of it as a journal. You can track all your practice sessions very easily. How do you do that? Well, you just hit the big orange button and you can capture any type of media that you want. A lot of you are going to be interested, obviously, in video, but you just hit the video button, it kicks it off, and then you're on your way. We're going to be talking about certain tripods and other things that you can use as well to make sure that this stuff becomes easier. You can also use your watch. CoachNow has a watch application that will allow you to trigger the camera and record inside of the platform. That way you don't even have to walk back to the camera if you've got it all set up. So that's through the Apple Watch. If you've got one of those, you're already set. So let's go over some tools here really quickly, right? So we've got your basic slow-mo here with the slow-mo wheel. You can see that I can drag it all around and do whatever I want, right? I can even go a little bit more frame by frame by actually using the wheel instead of that little ball, which I was using just a moment ago. I can tap forward, as you can see on the screen. I can even change the rate of play. So if I wanted to just let the video go through and play through it and eat the speed, I can do that. So why is this important? Well, a lot of times you're going to need to be able to slow things down to see what really is going on. Now, the key here, though, in order to get all of these frames, is if we go back one chunk here and we hit record. I'm just going to put this right over my mouse here. You want to select 240 frames, okay? Very, very important. That way you can get each of the frames here that I'm going through. Now, you can also record just directly into your camera and then import that later, again, by using 240 frames. We've got some AI technology I'm going to show you in just a moment, and it works really well. It actually works the best if you've got 240 frames. It won't work as well if you've got something else going, a lower frame rate. All right, so let's talk a little bit of golf here for just a moment. And let's show you some lines that are good ones to draw. So if you're kind of new to the sport or not familiar with plane lines, this is a good one to start with, where you've got it on the shaft and up just right around the shoulders. Now, what's going to happen here is you're going to see that I'm a little under the plane here. I haven't hit balls in quite some time. But as I come down, it should kind of feed kind of right on plane here. So that's good stuff. And then as I exit through, I'm generally on plane as well. So let's say I don't like this particular angle. I can tap on it and I can even move it around, okay? So CoachNow and the Analyze plan gives you a lot of opportunities to tweak things, right? I could make this actually bigger or smaller if I want. And then I've got all these other tools here, and I can just trash that, but I've got all these other freehand tools you can see here. And one of the cool things, I can even type on the screen, right? And in doing so, I now have this kind of really cool moment that I can remember and document along the way. Now, if I want to actually record some of the stuff, and this is the only thing I can't show you inside and out on this particular event today, if I hit that record button, that microphone button at the top, it's not going to let me do it because I'm doing a screen share with you now, so it'll just kind of freak the whole thing out. But what will happen is we'll record every single thing that's on the screen and allow you to review that and save that later. I'm going to show you what that looks like here in just a moment. But let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of AI. So I hit the skeleton button there. And as you can see, as I move it back, it's tracking the core joints, hips, knees, elbows, shoulders. Now, one of the things that's really cool here is if I tap on this joint, it's going to show me the degrees here. And this, for all you golfers out there, if you are doing anything down the line, this is a really good one to pay attention to. Because a lot of times an amateur golfer, someone that's not quite as skilled, is going to maintain with a lot of flex in their trail leg. And what you're seeing here is I'm actually decreasing the flex to create separation between the front leg and the trail leg. And as I come down, then you'll see the flex come back. And then as I come through. So this is one really great resource for you all to document or to kind of just get a better understanding of what's happening in a swing by using the skeleton feature there, okay? Now, I'm gonna go ahead and kick off a comparison where I can compare this video to another one, and we're gonna talk about camera angles because this is super duper important. All right, so I'm gonna bring up this video from the same exact day, and what you're gonna notice is the camera angles are dramatically different. We're gonna talk about that and why that's important. So notice on my phone, you know, it's feeling a little small, so I can pinch and zoom. But as I move this video here, you can tell it's nowhere near the same as the original. So I've got no chance to compare one to the other. Now, especially if I wanted to use our overlay feature here, where you can overlay two videos on itself to really see some traction or some improvement, I've got no chance, right? So if we talk about basic camera angles, this is so crucial for you all to understand. Every sport's going to be a little bit different. But if we're talking about golf, what are some of the things you want to pay attention to? Well, you want the hands to be in the center of the frame as best as you can, dead middle. Now, this one's maybe a little bit off to the left, but not too bad. And I use this alignment rod on the ground, as you're going to see here, to help with that centering, because I have to go put the camera back on the tripod and get a sense of where I'm going to stand. Now, this particular rod here on the ground that is more perpendicular, this helps me understand if the camera is level and more kind of just flush to the scene that I'm trying to capture. And I'm going to show you another tip here in a moment that's already built into your camera. But this is a really good thing to do. Now, again, if we go back to this other video, we focus in on it, notice the camera angle's too high for one. It's way off to the side. It's moving around, you know, so we captured this one to be extra bad on purpose. Now, you can look at the swing and maybe gauge some tempo or some other things you're looking for, but there's absolutely no way that you can compare one swing to the next. Now, I want to also show you an example here. If I go into my library, the library is very powerful if you use tags, okay? And this allows us, because this camera was a little closer, we zoom this one in. So what you can see now is I have a better chance, because the camera angle on my particular video is closer to this one, to compare myself to a professional to get some better insights on what I'm doing. That other one, I'd have absolutely no shot in doing it because the video angle is just completely off. So one of the other things that you can do is when you're capturing a video, you can turn on the grid function inside of your native capture, and then that'll allow you to use these grids when you're orienting your camera. So what you'll do is you'll turn on the camera, put it on your tripod before you go into CoachNow, get everything oriented the way that you want. And then when you launch CoachNow, as long as the camera hasn't moved or anything, you've got this perfect grid system there. And then this will work no matter what sport you are actively training in, okay? So within golf, as I was saying just a moment ago, one, you want the whole club to show, which is happening here, because there's a lot of things that we're building that's going to make that very important. And the other is, again, you want it to be hand high as best you can. So the camera is actually down a little bit at hand height, as well as with the hands centered in the screen. That way, as you're documenting your practice or your training over 20, 30, 100 swings, whatever it is, you have the best chance of tracking your progress accurately and using a lot of the features that we've built. Now, when you do a face-on video, like this one here, and if it zooms in, you can always pinch it to go out to get the true orientation. So this one is simple. You just want the subject in the middle. You want the camera angle kind of at that same height. This one's actually a tiny bit high, but the main thing is that everything should fit inside the swing, or sorry, inside of the frame. Okay. So if we go back to that space of mine and we start going through, again, you can notice that you can put any type of content inside of CoachNow and gain some serious value out of it. So again, this is bird's eye, kind of a worm eye view, I should say, of putting. So all you got to do here is you can do a couple things. One, you can just put the camera down, rotate it a little bit, and put it up against a tee. I even do a lot of drills where I'll put the camera, the phone actually in the hole itself, so I can get this kind of angle and see the ball rolling in. Again, 240 frames. And then I have the opportunity to document and draw on it, telestrate, and do whatever I want to do. All right. So another feature here with Analyze that we haven't showed you yet is that if I find a particular frame of the video that I really like, I can hit that camera button in the upper left and add it as a reply. So this was solid. Okay. So now I've got my original video here, and I've got the reply right underneath it. So this allows me to not only have the original piece of content, but anytime I'm adding some commentary, or I've got some friends or supporters or coaches adding comments, that can live right under the original, so we can keep track of that conversation. It's incredibly simple to do. I am going to bring up one more video from this current space just to show you more of how the overlay feature can work. So these are different days, different range setups, but you can see the camera is very, very close. So it gives me a chance to reorient what I'm doing here. So we'll bring this one a little bit more into focus. So you can see here, I can go and select this one or this one. And it allows me to, oops, move this particular subject here. Now it takes a little bit of finagling here, but you can see how close they're starting to get. There we go, good enough for the demo purposes. So then you can see I've got two swings overlaid, and you can see that while it isn't a perfect overlay, it's going to give me a lot of insight that I wouldn't be able to get if the camera angles were dramatically off. All right, so we do have a couple questions coming in, so I'm just going to pause and read those really quick, and we're going to take more as we keep moving, though. Yes, this absolutely works with moving athletes. We have a ton of track and field folks in here. So one thing that track athletes or track coaches really love is this timer tool. Okay, so you can imagine when you start a video, let's say here, you can see I'm 0.72 already into the video. But if I add this timer tool, I'm going to have a better sense of what my overall swing tempo is, because it's not completely dependent on me starting and stopping the video at the perfect time. So we could say from beginning to impact, you know, something like that. Because this is a slow-mo video, it's not a perfect example because the swing isn't in the normal frame rate. But if you play it through at normal speed, track coaches love kind of documenting 100 meters, 40 meters, anything like that has to do with moving athletes. It's very simple. And as long as you're capturing at the right frame rate to break things down, then you get them in the screen, you're going to be able to do all the same things that we've done here, including the skeleton stuff, because you can then track the running form. Now, this isn't a moving athlete, but it is a little bit more of the example here of tracking a different movement. Yeah, jumpers the same. You can do anything you want. As long as you can get them in frame, this is going to be an incredibly helpful tool for you. And because you're kind of moving the phone as you're capturing them, the moment they jump, or if you have it static and they fit, and the moment they jump, you're going to be able to slow everything down just the way that you want. We have hundreds and hundreds of track coaches, thousands of track athletes inside the platform. So that's a fantastic question. So we've covered quite a bit already in regards to the tools themselves. Highly encourage you, if you're not already in trial, just jump in and kick off the Analyze trial. We've got sample videos in your library that you're going to be able to use as a way to practice with the different tools. Now, again, drawing lines on videos is cool. It's great. But if you're not functionally organizing them in a way that allows you to track them over time and potentially collaborate with other folks, this isn't going to be, you're not going to really using the entire power of the platform. So another question here, can individuals join, or do you have to be in a group or club? No, individuals can join, absolutely. So if you're an individual athlete, you can kick off Analyze plan. If you're an individual coach, you can. If you're a coach coaching a bunch of different athletes, all you would do is you would hit create space here on the screen, and you would create a space and invite them in using their email. If you wanted to invite them into a space of your own, you can do that by just going into the space, edit members, and you can invite members into your space. So that's one of the most powerful things, is that even if you are not being coached, you do have support people in your life, people you like to practice with, train with. And it's really fun when you invite them into your space here and you guys can collaborate, kind of talk trash if you want, but it's a way for you to document your practice and work together. Even if you live across the world, it's a way to stay connected. And that's the same exact scenario if you're actually coaching other athletes, you can do the same. So in the Analyze plan, which we're talking a lot about today, you don't have access to the groups or lists feature. It's very lightweight, mostly focused on your library, 5 spaces, and then all the video analysis tools that I've just showed you today. And then we're going to keep adding to those as we go on. So one of the tools, or one of the features I haven't showed you all, which might be fun for you, is that we have this feature called Coach Cam. And you're going to notice, here I am on camera, right, as I'm going through this with you. So I can put my own kind of extra level of customized feedback on this video. Even if it's just for myself, I can talk through it as I'm recording the screen using the microphone button. I can make it bigger. I can flip it left or right. So a lot of coaches, if you're here and you're trying to learn how to use these tools, when you're doing a video breakdown of someone's technique by putting your face here and then maybe even backing away from the camera and doing some other demonstrations, really will create a very complete and customized level of feedback to another athlete, a friend, or even just yourself. All right. So again, in Analyze, you get up to 5 spaces. It's a great way to try it out with other people or just yourself. You've got the library, and then you have all of these different video tools. All right, so I'm going to pause on showcasing the video tools just as of now, and I'm going to take some of the questions that we got from people registering beforehand. That way we can make sure that not only we're talking about the tools, but we're also talking about the technique and some of the other lessons that we've learned over the last 12 plus years of doing this. All right, so I think one question here, if you are a coach on the line and you're watching this either here live or in the recording, one of the questions here, are people paying more, less, or the same as in-person coaching for something remote? So purely remote coaching. I think the answer is not exactly, but very, very close. And the reason being is because you have the power of something like CoachNow to stay connected to that athlete. You're not just doing video lessons where you're talking maybe on Zoom like we are today, or you're not just doing a breakdown of somebody's swing for $50. You're actually creating a coaching plan. And in our case, we call it subscription coaching or connected coaching. This allows you to stay connected with one athlete or hundreds of athletes across the world and deliver a very comprehensive coaching relationship rather than just breaking down technique. So let me just show you a quick example of that with a fellow named Jay. So I'm no longer coaching him because I don't have a lot of capacity to coach, but this is someone I worked with a while ago. And we saw each other once a month. And he was paying hundreds of dollars a month to see me for that little bit of time in person. But the majority of what he was paying for and the value was the interaction that we had remotely. So you can see he's using this space with a lot of passion, I guess, by uploading everything on his own for his practices. That way I, as his coach, can keep track of him, even if we're not together. So if you are someone that's looking to get into remote coaching, we have other programs that we've built called the Connecting Coach Blueprints that you can actually take as a part of our pro membership. It's included, or you can do it a la carte. You just reach out to us and we walk you through all these different business models if you're interested in learning about something like that. Another question here from the chat. Do you have to pay or are they free if I add them? So athletes, if you are a coach and you're listening to this and you want to use the Analyze plan, again, you can basically use it with 5 athletes as a way to get started. Once you go to Plus or Pro or any of the other memberships that we have today or in the future, you have unlimited spaces, which means you have unlimited athletes. Those folks are not paying us because they're already paying you. It's the same thing in the Analyze plan if you just wanted to try it out. They're not going to pay us because once they're sponsored by a coach who's paying us here at CoachNow, they get a little flag on their account that says they get access for free. Now, they don't get all the cool tools that we have with the analysis. They get some of them, but not all of them. They can also only be a member of 5 spaces. They have limited access to other features, but it's a great way for them to stay connected to you, just like I showed with the example of Jay. He wasn't paying CoachNow anything. He just had access to this entire comprehensive training journal, which now that we're not even actively coaching, I'm not coaching him any longer, he still has 2+ years of information inside of that space that he can look at any other time or even continue adding to. So hopefully that helps you understand how that works. So I think one of the big questions here, how to practice more efficiently. I talked about it here in the beginning, but it's worth reintroducing. So when I was coaching for the 10, 15 years that I was, the main thing that I helped people understand is that when you're out spending time, regardless of the sport, you're doing a handful of things. But the most important thing is that you are practicing with some level of feedback. Now, it doesn't always have to be video. You can use training aids. No matter what sport you're in, there are training aids that give you some kinesthetic awareness, or they actually literally put something in your way that you have to move around or jump over or dribble past or shoot over. These are all incredibly important things so that when you're practicing, you get a better sense of how you're truly spending that time. The next level, though, is always capturing something from that practice session. Now, it doesn't always have to be a technical video. You can even just document just in text what you worked on that day, summarizing it, or what we call a recap. You can flip the camera on yourself and do a little selfie video of what you worked on that day, so that when you go back in the future, 6 months from now, and you're struggling and you want to look back to when you were performing your best, you've got all of these resources time-stamped, organized, and ready to refer to, so that you can kind of keep that momentum going. Now, if you are capturing technique, imagine how powerful it is to be using this for over a year and recognize that you can look back and compare yourself today versus a year ago. And that's not something you're capable of doing if you just have all of these random videos inside of your camera roll. The organization there is just brutal. So if you care about what you're doing, you need to document it all in one dedicated application rather than just having things on your camera roll. We have a lot of parents that use the platform. They use Analyze in that same way to make sure that if they're out helping their son or daughter practice in their particular sport, they're capturing some videos, little notes, and that way it's all organized for them. We have thousands of kids get recruited every year using our platform because they're able to showcase all of their development to those coaches. So imagine, again, if I'm a junior golfer once upon a time, and I've got years and years and years of things that a potential recruiter can see, not only just my swing, how it's evolved over time, but my notes, the way I think about it, the way my coaches and I interact. It's incredibly valuable if you have kind of these bigger goals in life. So again, if you are practicing, feedback is the word, right? That's the thing that you need to make sure you've got in golf: alignment rods, training aids, and then video, of course. Now, if you're looking for a tripod or what we call a monopod, this is something that I really like. There's a company called out there called G-Pod. So I'm just going to pull that up here just so I make sure I'm on the right set. Yeah, so G-Pod. This is branded for golf, but it works for any sport, so please don't let that hold you up. It's the absolute best tool I've seen for quickly adding your camera onto a particular mount and not necessarily having to set up an entire tripod, because you can stick it in the ground or you can have a little tripod that you can put on cement. The height of it for golf is great. It's basically hand height because they know what they're doing. And if you like one of these things, you can use the code CoachNow and save 10%. They're friends of ours. And I highly recommend that if you are serious about starting to capture some content of your practice, that you use something like this. All right, so let's go back to the other questions here. Okay, so this question is very similar. It's about training, but it's about the goals in training. And so I think this will be helpful for everybody here as well, is that depending on what you're working on and what you're training for, the goals in each training session could very well be different. And this is something called periodization. So if you're trying to peak for a particular event, let's say 6 months from now, you're going to break down your training in different phases. So by the time that event comes around, you've got your technical changes done. You've got your mindset changes done. You've got your physical changes done. Your nutrition's dialed in. You've got all of these things organized. So when you get to that event, all you're doing is just relying on that training back at the subconscious and just performing. You're not overthinking all of the technical pieces that a lot of athletes usually fall into during their performance. In golf, if you're here, like most of you are, you have a lot of time to think about things when you're on the course. So if you haven't prepared in the appropriate way, it's very easy to fall back in this technical trap. So here's what we talk about in periodization. You're going to have a technical phase. That's when you work on your technique. Very clearly understand. That's when you're using the training aids. That's when you're using a lot of video. And your goals during those sessions are not what is the ball doing? What is the result? It's more of, can I move in the particular way that I'm trying to move? Sometimes technical changes are very difficult to make, but if you're not using any forms of feedback, it's going to take you forever, or you may never, ever get there. So use training aids that force you into certain positions, use cameras, use mirrors, anything you can, because feel and real are very different. And if any of you here listening have recorded your movement at least once, you're going to recognize that what you thought you were doing, what you actually were doing, were usually pretty far off. The best athletes in the world are the ones that have a really good sense of their movement patterns. So even when they video themselves, they go, that's exactly what I felt, because they've done this thousands, if not millions of times, and they've recorded themselves. So they have a really good sense of where they are in space because they've documented it, reviewed it, and kept practicing with that feedback. So that's the technical phase. Now you've got the pre-competition phase. where you're trying to take some of those technical movements into the actual sport itself. So again, for you golfers there, you're taking it onto the course. The goal of that course session is not the score. It's to see if you can make some of those difficult movements that you've been working on the actual golf course when you've got different lies, you're aiming differently. That's the pre-competition phase. Then you transition into the competition phase where hopefully you're now just competing. You're more about strategy. You're more about mindset. You're more about just focusing on the moment rather than reviewing and trying to figure out where you are in space. After that, you've got your review phase or your post-competition phase where you should have documented what you've learned from that competition and you're reviewing it for the next time. So each time you go through this cycle, you're learning each and every time. If you don't have those particular habits yet, that's why you're here. Now is the time to learn these things. And we have a lot of content on that. And you can always reach out to us and get more insight on these particular phases. These phases, though, this periodization can be a year. It could also be a handful of days. So when tour players travel to these tournaments and they have a tournament starting on Thursday and they arrive on Monday, you can imagine they're in technical phase on Monday, pre-competition phase Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they compete on Thursday. So you can have these macro cycles or also these micro cycles. And a lot of times it's going to be more helpful if you've got another set of eyes on you, you've got a coach or somebody else helping. But these are all things that you can start to build the habits of today, even if you're just an athlete all on your own. Professional sports and professional team sports in particular do a much better job of this periodization, off-season, preseason, et cetera. So for all of you in the more individualized sports that maybe could be year-round, it's imperative that you look at your entire year of what you're trying to accomplish, or the next 6 months or 3 months, whatever it might be, and start breaking down these phases and these periods so that you can actually perform or give yourself the best chance to perform when you hit that particular event that you're training for. All right, so that was a pretty long answer, but it is something I'm incredibly passionate about. Periodization, you've heard it here. You can go look it up other places and learn more. It's incredibly valuable for you all to understand. So that feeds into another follow-up question: playing free or uninhibited while under the influence of pressure. I think I just answered it. Generally is that if you've done the preparation, there shouldn't be this nervous energy or this stress energy. It's more about the excitement of competing. So when you talk to the best players in the world across the board, football, golf, soccer, tennis, whatever it might be, the answers are generally the same. If they feel prepared, there's basically no nerves or pressure because they can fall back on all that preparation. Just like studying for a math test or about to take a math test, if you didn't do the preparation, you're going to be kind of freaking out. But if you studied, you did all the exercises, you nailed it, when you get to the test, it's just part of the process. So when we talk about periodization, just to maybe wrap this up a little differently, the competition that you play is not the end. It's just it's a part of the cyclical phases that you're doing. So it's a way for you to gather more information. It's not the culmination of your career. It's one more data point. So as you're competing out there, just recognize that you're just learning every step of the way. So if you're feeling stressed, it's likely that you haven't done the preparation. Let's talk about motor skill learning. So I want to focus in on this because it kind of piggybacks on everything I've already said. So I just want to answer this person's question because it's clear that they're interested in these kinds of things. In order to maximize your opportunities to retrain the way that your body learns, whether it to be run differently, throw differently, catch differently, hit differently, whatever it might be, feedback is the key, and using training aids and also moving through these movement patterns slowly and breaking them down into incremental pieces. So in the world of golf, a lot of times, well, in the world of anything, usually everything is a sequence of events in your technical movement. So it's very difficult to change in golf your impact position or your downswing if your setup is all messed up, if your backswing's wonky and doing a bunch of different things. All the rest of it is a chain reaction of what happened before. So if you are looking at changing some of your overall movement patterns, you need to chunk it down and start at the simplest level first. So start with the basics in your sport of your setup. If you don't know what that setup is, you definitely want to get access to a coach or at least get a clear understanding of what that setup is. In the world of golf, you've got your grip, your stance, your ball position, your posture. All of these things are unique to each player, but there's also parameters in which you want to operate in. Then from there, you want to break down certain movements. So let's go ahead and get the screen share back going, and I can kind of talk about this. So every coach does it differently. Every player does it differently. But in some worlds, you're going to have certain positions that you want to hit in the golf swing. So the first one is kind of hands over your feet. I've always had the tendency, as you're going to see here, just give you a little insight into how I think about things. I've always had the tendency, because I broke my wrist, I've had spine surgery, my body's kind of a mess. I've had the tendency to push my hands away a little bit. A lot of other coaches would say we'd want those hands to go kind of more on this line directly over that right foot. So that would be in some worlds P1, right? So you practice this over and over and over again. And this actually used to be worse for me. I used to drag the club more inside. So it'd be like over here somewhere, right? So if I just practice this position, I just literally stop here, and then I go slowly up to the top and then slowly down. This is training myself to feel these movement patterns when usually it's going to be very difficult. Another position in golf is kind of lead arm parallel to the ground. You can stop there, kind of make sure that you're feeling how the legs are working, making sure that the butt end of the club is kind of pointed between you and the ball. Take it to the top. A lot of folks here, you don't want to have the club head pointing in all sorts of wild directions. It's generally neutral, little club head shut, maybe a little cross the line, but not a big deal. So these are all things that you want to do no matter what the sport is you kind of hit these particular positions, work through them slowly so you can make these different changes over time. But if I wasn't videoing this, if I wasn't lined up properly, if I wasn't using alignment aids, I wasn't using training aids and other practice sessions I'm doing, these changes would take forever. You have such a distinct advantage by having CoachNow and the app, your phone just in general, even without CoachNow, you have such a distinct advantage from when I was playing competitively. God, so long ago. It's crazy. It was like 20 years ago when I was playing professionally. I had to get a big old camcorder, put it on a tripod, record it, then go back to my house, wire it into my TV, and then look at it on the TV. Right? I was capturing hundreds of swings because back then I even realized how important it was, but it was incredibly difficult to get that level of feedback. I definitely didn't have any cool drawing tools or let alone AI or anything else. So there's never been a better time for you all to be training more effectively, training like a pro, because again, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of athletes that are high performance athletes use this platform every day to do all the things that I'm showing you. All right, so we've got about 5 more minutes. If you've got any live questions, go ahead and toss them in, but I'm going to tackle a couple more of the questions that came in. So one question here just from an athlete, and again, unfortunately, I can't show it because of the screen share side of things, but why would I even want to do a voiceover? Well, it's really a great way for you to, I use the word document over and over again. I apologize about that, but it is a really great way for you to record what you're thinking about during that time. So if I was recording this swing, talking through all the things I'm noticing, not only do I just have this random swing in time, but I also have my thoughts about it. So when I look back, I can understand what I was feeling, what the ball was doing, maybe what my clubs were looking like that day as far as my equipment, the weather, et cetera. It gives me just a lot more context rather than over time if I just had random swings in here that I don't have a good understanding of what I was working on. So you can see here, this is just more of like testing stuff, but you can see here a good example. This is a freeze drill, stopping at the top, stop, and then come down. These are all the things that we want you guys working on, is these drills and putting them into play. And doing a voiceover on something like that will allow me to go, I was doing this because, versus just having this random swing in here. Our memories are shot. So one of the things that you can look up after this is something called the forgetting curve. Hopefully you remember, but you'll at least have this video to reflect on if you don't. The forgetting curve essentially states that we forget more than we remember. So you're going to lose about 30 to 40%, or maybe even more, right after you leave a coaching session or a learning session. And over a week's period, you're going to lose at least 90% of that time, or 90% of that information. So by documenting and putting things into play, putting all the information into one spot, you're going to have an opportunity to beat that forgetting curve. All right. Yeah, I remember those camcorder days for sure. How about old movies? Okay, good question. So can you upload stuff that didn't originate on your phone? Absolutely. So you can add things to the library from your phone by literally just hitting library, going into your camera roll and grabbing stuff. We also have a web application. So even if you're an Analyze member, you can use that same login, go to coachnow.io, log in, and you can upload things into your library if they're just sitting on your computer. Of course, if you have access to Dropbox or Google Drive or anything on your phone, you can also toss those things in. Now, we don't have at this time swing models across different sports. We don't. Because we work in so many different sports, we don't have these libraries for people. But I can tell you, it's incredibly easy to add models in. So if you have any footage from any other platforms, I'll whisper this to you. You can go on Instagram and do some screen records if you want, and you can drop them in here as long as you're not taking credit that you own them or trying to monetize them in any way. But if you're just using them to compare yourself, it's kind of free game these days, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. You can add them in here and then you can tag them. So one of the things that I haven't showed you, and I think it's worthwhile while we have a couple more minutes, if I long press on this video, you're going to notice that some information comes up, some options. So I'm going to long press here. I can create a new post. So I could add this into a space. I can add tags, or I can export this video. So you'll notice that this is the screenshot that I took. It started off in a space and now it's in my library. So I have an opportunity to reuse it in another space, with another athlete, or I can even delete it if I want. So in this case, I'm going to delete it. It deleted from the library, but it did not delete from the space, just so that you're aware. But as you're adding content, please be sure to tag it. You can tag it right when it goes in or tag it later, but make sure you do, because that way you can track progress over a period of time and compare things to like things. So some camera angle choices that I want you to look at. If I go back, sorry, you've got DTL down the line, all right? You can type it out if you want, but that's one little shorthand for golf. And you've got FO, which is face on, when you're looking directly at the face of someone, like this video here, the 25-second one, okay? So by using tags, as you're going to see in my space, I can then go through and I can say, well, show me all the things that have DTL as a tag on it. And then you can see as I'm scrolling through over years and years and years, all these different videos that have DTL. They have other tags as well, which will allow me to go even further to say, well, I want to see DTL with drivers or DTL drills, things like that. So please, as you're creating posts, make sure that you tag them right when you do it, or at the very least, a little bit later. Always add context. You can see I've added some text here. And then as I showed you before, you can start replying with other media right underneath it to make sure that you've really got a complete story of what was happening for that particular swing or movement. All right, so I think I've got time for one or two more questions. How can parents use CoachNow or particular Analyze to help their kids improve? I've already talked about it a little bit, but we might as well talk a little bit more about it. So if I am an Analyze member, I'm paying the $60 a year, very, very affordable. What I would do is I would create a space for that junior, and it would show up here. So I would go, okay, well, let's select an athlete. So you can even say it's for you. So I'm going to say it's for me. Golf, select list, create. Well, let me choose a different sport because that one already exists. So let's do CrossFit. Okay, just so you can see. So now I'm in this empty space. So the next time you're out there with your junior, all you got to do is just hit the new post button and you can start capturing anything that you want. So if your junior's working with another coach, I would encourage you all to collaborate in here. So tell your coach about it, invite them in, or send them our way so we can help them work with you more effectively. If you're parenting and coaching on your own, literally it was that simple. Create an account, create a space, and start adding content in there as quickly as you can. And over time, it's just going to become more and more valuable. And especially if your junior has aspirations of being recruited someday, they now have this multi-year training journal that they can showcase about everything that they've done. It's very powerful. If I'm an athlete, should I consider CoachNow Plus or Pro or Analyze? 100% you're going to want to pick Analyze. It's built just kind of right in the sweet spot for you, to where you have the tools that the best in the world use, from a video analysis standpoint, a technical analysis standpoint. You have the way to keep track of everything you're doing. You can invite some other people in, friends, family, other coaches, what have you, but you're not burdened by all the other coach-specific features like scheduling content, group functionality, smart lists. Soon it's going to be scheduling and billing, a bunch of other stuff that you as an athlete don't need. This Analyze membership is perfect for you, where you get the best tools in the world that are great for just what you need at an affordable price. And it's the same here, honestly, if you're kind of an aspiring coach, a new coach that's maybe coaching part-time, your income levels aren't in such a way that you are ready to invest. If you do that, so Analyze gives you a chance to just kind of get your feet under you and recognize, wow, okay, maybe coaching could be something that I do for a living. And CoachNow provides you every other piece of information as well as technology to scale your business. We got a couple more questions, so I want to make sure we get them. So suppose an athlete has only one coaching relationship. Why would they need up to 5 spaces? So the reason why we do 5 spaces is that we recognize an athlete that sees value in CoachNow might be a multi-sport athlete. So that especially a junior might be a golfer, a baseball player, and a tennis player. They can use CoachNow with 3 different coaches without ever having to pay, as long as their coaches are using CoachNow in a premium way, because usually those coaches are coaching hundreds of people, not just the one. Additionally, if you are, let's say, coaching a golfer and you want the golf space to be one space, and you want them to also have a fitness space or a mental space or a nutrition space, you can create multiple spaces for them, and it would live just like it does with me underneath that one athlete. So you can see I've got a bunch here for testing, etc. But you can imagine here, so if we go to Amelia, you can see that she's got fitness training, technical information, and her golf training as well. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that athletes could have multiple spaces. Have you worked with a lot of ice hockey goaltenders? That is a great question, and the answer is heck yeah. We are growing very, very quickly in hockey, and specifically in the world of goaltending and kind of skate training, meaning just we have a lot of people that are just training very specific skating techniques. So if you want to know more about how we work with goaltenders, what kind of people are using it, just reach out to us. We can schedule a one-to-one call with you. But the answer is heck yeah. Yeah, it's very, very valuable for that kind of technical part of the game. All right. Well, really appreciate you all being here, asking great questions, participating. As we recap, though, I want to make sure that you take away a couple things. One, feedback is the core to improvement, whether you're coaching or you're doing this on your own. Feedback. One major component of that is video feedback, but can also be just literally taking notes. That's important too. G-Pod. It's a great monopod and tripod. Use the code CoachNow, save 10%. You can get whatever you want there that fits your style, but they have a lot of really good things. The other is that if you have CoachNow and you have the Apple Watch, one of the newer ones, I don't recall exactly what model, but let's say, 7 or above, you're going to have a great opportunity to actually trigger recordings from your watch. So you can stand away from your phone, get a little preview, record, and you're on your way. We've got a heck of a lot more coming here in the near future, but all of these tools that we've got today are way, way better than I used to have. So please take advantage of them. Don't be like the people that we saw in the very beginning of this on the range that aren't doing anything and are absolutely getting worse. This is your opportunity to get better. I'm stoked that you're here. We're going to do more of these. So please be on the lookout. And if you've got any feedback for us on what you want to see next, please let us know. And yes, go get those goaltenders. Yeah, goalie, old goalie, all this tech. Yeah, absolutely. We're here to help. So thank you so much for being here. This was Train Like a Pro. We're going to do more of these. I hope that you join us on the next one and tell your friends. But for now, we will see you next time. Thanks again.